I'm Paul. I've been here for about 2 or 3 months, and I'm a junior studying software engineering.
I'm Harper, team lead. I've been working at the lab for 2.5 years now, and I'm studying computer science as a senior, graduating in December.
I'm Daniel. I've been in the lab for a little over a year now. I graduated last May, and I studied music when I was there.
I'm Sam. I've been working at the lab for about 2 or 3 months, and I'm studying music and computer science.
Talon Mason, and I've been here at the lab for about a year and a half, and I'm also studying computer science, graduating in December.
So the virtual reality team was originally created back during COVID as a way to give people virtual tours without having to worry about the physical interactions and COVID and all that. So it's been around for a while now, maybe 3.5 years. It was originally started by Ezra Miller and Christian Chapman, who I worked with for my first year and a half on the team. And so Lab Tour was created during that COVID period. And it kind of evolved into something more. It's a lot more than just a tour for, virtual interactions. We now use it to show off the different technology we have in the lab, and the virtual reality team as a whole has kind of evolved to the idea that radio frequency technology is invisible, and we want to make it visible and share it with people and give it tangibility in the virtual world. So with all that said, virtual reality team, it's virtual reality, so we use a lot of game development tools. So we have a lot of game development roles on our team. So primarily programmers, and following that, artists and musicians. So Paul here, programmer. I myself, programmer. Daniel's a musician. Sam is kind of all the trades. He does programming, music, and art. And Talon over here is very good with 3D modeling. So yeah. So it was really just originally just, it was COVID. We needed some way to give tours virtually. Justin had the idea of sending out headsets to people and letting them do the tours in the comfort of their own homes. But that never really happened. And when we realized it had more potential for giving tours in the actual lab after COVID had passed, that's what it evolved into, and that's what it's used for today. So with Lab Tour, and then I'll go first and I'll let some other people give a different perspective. But with Lab Tour, it started with just Ezra and Christian, our original founders, just experimenting. And they hadn't done a lot with virtual reality tech before, so it was all about trial and error, figuring out what works, how do we get virtual reality working. And then they got it working, they started doing demos in the lab, and following that, Justin decided to hire some more team members, which included me and a few others. And from that point forward, we started to see what else we could do with Lab Tour and how we could expand its potential. One of those things was multiplayer. So from that point, we decided to add multiplayer to it as a feature and see if we could do long distance tours and also incorporate a sort of monitor, like a portal, to be able to view the world from a TV while your friends are in it. And that gives sort of the evolution of Lab Tour, but as far as our development process goes, it's kind of loose. We have all of our schedules are different, and we all have a different idea of where it wants to go, especially Justin, who likes to basically, all of his ideas are from 80s movies. So we have a lot of different directions that we like to take it. So our development process is pretty loose. We line up a list of tasks and features and goals that we want to work towards, and then we just like dice through them one at a time. And that's for like to give a different perspective. I don't know if any of you guys want to talk about your experience.
Yeah, so I think everybody on the team now came in late. From the sound point of view specifically, I was coming in not just to do the music, but I also came in to bring in a new sound engine as well, kind of help with reverbs, playlisting, stuff like that. So it actually took quite a lot of studying and being guided through what we already had to make the adjustments without messing anything up. That was quite an experience, new for me, but all of them were very helpful about it.
I guess I can add on, I guess. It's been, as Harper said, there's a lot of roles involved, and it's like everybody has different trades. Like we're all programmers in some way, shape, or form, and I've touched 90 before. So everybody has that experience, and then everybody else has what it is that they learned prior to coming. So there is a lot of different trades involved, and I think that that's very beneficial and allows for exploring different avenues and approaches to building on what we have already.
I came in with some limited experience working with Unity specifically, just working on my free time, tinkering and figuring out things. But when I came here, it was mainly like a 3-point training process. It was first to learn the engine, learn how things work, and learn how to structure things. You learn how to kind of think inside the engine and where, when to add a component or when to write a script or and hooking things together. Just actually getting your hands on and getting experience and learning how the system itself works. Then we moved on to multiplayer, which was our second project, to learning how to have networks and computers talking to each other, keeping things synchronized, and handling connection, disconnection, and making sure that all runs smoothly. And then third was our VR, obviously, looking to how you integrate from working on a 2D screen and creating a 3D environment, how to optimize that environment so that way it stays smooth and you stay, you don't break immersion. And just learning how to use that different type of controller. And yeah.
So I didn't create any of the music for this. That was all Daniel. But I did work on having. There's a scene transition where you can go from the main retail area into the RF chamber area, and I added like a transition for his music, and it like completely shifts the atmosphere. So it adds a lot to the immersion, I would say, and just it gives it like a more interesting atmosphere.
Plus, it makes it feel more professional as a project. When we have people watching it, it makes it feel more as an experience rather than just being shown like, okay, here's like a 3D environment, that's all.
So this is more during my timeline, and probably not really everyone else's here, but one of the biggest issues that LabTour ever faced was transitioning from a single player project to a multiplayer project. When you're creating a multiplayer project, ideally you create the project knowing it's going to be multiplayer, and then you work all of the systems into multiplayer as you build it. But LabTour was developed as a single player project for over a year, and then Justin and Ezra and Christian all had a grand vision for a multiplayer version of LabTour, and then everything exploded for about 6 months. And so we had to take all the pieces of LabTour, rip them apart, and put them back together. And honestly, it's come out to a bit of a scrambled mess now, but it works. I'd say like just during my timeline, that was the biggest problem we faced. I think it should be mentioned, like we sort of officially finished Lab Tour about a year ago. We have other projects we're working on now. We're just now getting this trailer out and stuff, but we're also doing one final iteration of Lab Tour to give it a final send off. And I think Paul and Sam and Talon, Daniel too, can all talk about like the issues that we faced with that final send off.
Yeah, it was difficult because a lot of the people who originally worked on the project aren't here anymore. So really had to like dig into a lot of the systems and figure out how they did stuff. And there were a few things that just didn't seem to make very much sense. But I think we eventually got it relatively polished.
From a sound perspective, the music itself was easy to make. It was everything else. There was probably a major issue every step of the way because I was reworking the sound, so I had to sort of relearn what all made it work to put the new system in, and several times just nothing to play, and I would sit there stressing for hours on the computer trying to figure that out. But it all worked out too.
I would say experience would be probably the big thing I would highlight, and this ties into my experience as being in with the RFID lab as well as the turnover rate for people graduating and moving on. So you have a problem where, as Sam said, you have this problem where you have to learn all of these systems that other people made, and there's relatively little documentation, if any, or some documentation if you're lucky. But the big problem is you have people who don't have a lot of experience coming in and having to relearn everything and pretty much discover the trade as they go along. So that comes with its own problems beyond having to adapt to the project itself. So I think from my experience, it was figuring out things as you went along, but not only that, going back and fixing your mistakes as you made them in the past with what it is you learned in the future.
Sure, yeah. I would say for myself, something that's been really interesting, especially recently, is we transitioned to these new projects. It's been really fascinating to learn the different ways you can simulate radio frequency technology. And we've always gone for more visual simulation. We want it to be educational and informative to whoever uses it. We want it to be pretty. People want to come in and look at a virtual reality project and be wowed. And Justin wants to be wowed, of course. So a lot of what I've been experimenting with lately is how to create those visual simulations, and the direction we also want to see if we can go in is to create a more physics-based, realistic simulation as well. So just the different facets of exploring simulation and the physical world of RFID has been a really big learning curve for me.
For me, as far as working as a musician in games industry goes, you're usually not just making music, at least for indie projects. You're also the one coding the sound and making that work as well. So this is really valuable professional experience as far as that goes.
I've learned a lot about 3D art in particular, because it was always something I wanted to try to do, but I was just like a dumb little kid. But now I've had a chance to really kind of get into the technical aspects of that. It's been really cool.
You want to say something, Paul?
I just was going to say, I want to tack on to what Harper was saying, was that it's really cool to be able to show this off using something like VR, because it's a lot cheaper to simulate RFID technology in a headset than it is to actually make it in the real world. And it's everyone I tell that my work about, they all tell me that this is really cool, and I kind of think back, and this is cutting edge stuff here, and we're just trying to find the best way to integrate this technology and figure out what works and what doesn't, and what is the most efficient way to use this scanning and this tagging technology.
I'm glad you said that, because I think that's the cool thing that I learned beyond just like 3D graphics as a whole and getting into the whole, not only 3D graphics, but 3D graphics in a game sense, you're doing a lot of the same tricks that already exist because you're using hardware that's weak. And you have to think about it like that. Like you have a limitation. How can we make something really big under these set limitations? I think that that's really interesting how you can go back to what people have already made to begin with. Since like the very beginning, since like the 90s, it's been the same problem. Is we have hardware that can only do this. How can we do what it is we want to do with this hardware? I think that's awesome.
So I think just general project direction and like it's something that's been really amazing is Justin has given us a lot of freedoms as a team. He gives us what he wants to see in this project, and then from there he just lets us explore and find the direction we want to find. So we keep lists of tasks. We keep a board to say, okay, this is what everyone's working on. This is what we need to be working on. This is what we want to. This is when we want it to be done by. But I think what really keeps us, as straight shooters, is that everyone has their own direction. Everyone knows what they want to see in the project and what they want to create and add to it. And so I think that keeps everyone on track because they're excited about what they get to work on next and where they get to take it.
Even as someone who hasn't been here too long, I can tell that Harper's also a good team leader. It's really nice just to be able to look over and be like, hey, how does this look? Do you have any pointers? This, that, and the other. And even greater than that, I think we have really good camaraderie as a team. I think since we all share similar interests, we all have the same vision, and it makes it a lot easier to stay focused and get things done, especially when it's usually multiple people working together instead of us splintering off and trying to do things on our own.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Yeah, this is actually probably what I'm most excited to talk about. In a minute, I think I'm going to grab Arpan over there and bring him here because I think he'll have a lot to say about one of our new projects as well. He looks scared. In just a minute. Yeah. But something like the project I'm really excited about personally is we're taking Lab Tour and we're creating a spiritual successor to it. It's been in the works for a while now. And the idea is to take everything that went wrong with Lab Tour, sand it down, and add everything back and more to make it the greatest version of itself that it can be. And so some of the things that we're doing is, like I said, like talked about earlier, is we're adding a lot of simulation technology. Mostly visual. We're looking into more physics, realistic-based simulations, but mostly visual technology, seeing how we can simulate what RFID waves look like, how the tags scan in real time, just throwing all of these visual elements in to make it a really pretty piece of software. As well as, Lab Tour, it does what it needs to do, but it's built on top of a lot of work, and it's hard to dig into that work and change it from the roots up. So with RF Playground, we're building it from the roots up with all the mistakes and everything we learned from Lab Tour. So I'm personally really excited about that.